Welcome to the Collective Intelligence podcast, where we bring together diverse experiences and perspectives that give you a richer picture of the world. So we've got today with us Aaron Zar'sjourney slash Zar talking on the Collective Intelligence podcast, and yeah, Aaron, thanks very much for being here and joining me on the first podcast. So just hoping that you can kind of start off by introducing yourself. Tell us what you're all about and what you're up to these days.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for having me. Much appreciated. Sounds like a really cool idea for a podcast. Very useful to people. Yeah, so my name's Aaron. I am a music producer and a drummer. Also coming up mix engineer, as well as I work for an animal charity as well as the like database coordinator, and make music under the name Zar, as Aaron said. And yeah, as everyone is probably trying to do right now, I'm just trying to get through COVID times without getting COVID and just trying to keep my sanity. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, really cool. And yeah, just for viewers, we do have the same name. Probably forgot to mention.
Yeah, spelled the same as well.
So, yeah, we're both Aaron, so bit of a mind blowing. But yeah, so so yeah, you're kind of involved in loads of different music areas, and you kind of went from, I think at school you were a drummer and guitarist, and over the years you've kind of gotten yourself into more DJing and producing and mixing. And how's that journey been for you? Like, were there any pivotal moments that kind of helped kind of forge that path, or did you always see yourself kind of going down that path as well, or was it?
No, never. No, that's for sure. That's quite a big question that you've asked to like start off. But like
straight to it.
I just no, I appreciate that. I guess it just comes down to like your life experiences, right? I definitely, when I was like a teenager, like when we were at school and stuff, I didn't never in a million years did I foresee myself like being. I forgot to mention I'm also a DJ as well, as Aaron said, but I haven't been doing that a lot because of lockdown. But yeah, I never saw myself as like producing music or like DJing and that sort of thing. I was just very much like, in some ways, very myopically like drums and playing guitar. But just suppose as you get older and you get exposed to like new experiences, new ways of thinking, like if you're open to it yourself, then you'll begin to see the value that it has on yourself. And yeah, I just got super inspired by like the new sounds and the new things, like to the point where I was like, I actually want to just give it a go and stuff. So like I used to, when I left university, I was like, I'm gonna play drums. That's what I'm gonna do, and I did that, and it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it was gonna be. And then at the same time, I found, I discovered like a lot of electronic music at the same time. I was getting really into hip hop and like hunting for samples and digging and that sort of thing. Like all my favorite artists like kind of are in that same sort of avenue. So I was like, okay, I want to just give it a go. And I just found it as fulfilling as playing drums. And it's opened up a whole new world of like, I've met so many people, I've met so many like amazing artists with this, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. And I always feel like I have like my feet in like, I've got one foot in like this like drumming world because I still play drums and stuff, not like I've stopped. But then I've got my other foot in like this like electronic-y, I suppose, DJing, like rapping, hip hop world. And the two, they don't seem to they've never collided. So I always feel like I'm running parallel. I'm like this driver in a like I'm like this person in like the middle of these like two train cars just like running parallel. I'm kind of like trying to steer both of them at the same time.
Really like that analogy. So
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds like you might need more feet though, because you're quite involved in like loads of different areas, aren't you? So like even within the DJing and rapping, or do you kind of consider that all to be like one foot, like for that term?
but well, I suppose if you think back it to like it being like pivotal moments, like it that can class as a foot. Like
Okay, I see what
this
you mean.
analogy is getting weird. Like it's like um it's like it was a like one of the like bigger pivotal moments I had where I was like, oh yeah, I can actually like do this. Like I can like produce music and like whenever I'd make stuff and I'd send it to people, like the response I'd get from people was really encouraging. It wasn't like, oh, it's just this guy who's like tinkering around on his laptop and making some random whatever. You know, people are like, this is actually really good. So I was like, oh okay, maybe I should just keep on doing it then. Like, and it's only through other people's encouragement that have the um you have the confidence almost to like keep on going. Like you need other people's feedback
Yeah, definitely.
to, if you want to, I suppose, make it a career in some respects. Like you do need that, but then you also need to draw the line in between like how much of what you want to do, or your art, your work, you want to retain your own personality without having too much outsider influence. I guess we can talk about that later because I think that's quite interesting about learning to like set your own boundaries in the work you do. Um, and stuff. And I'd
Yeah,
be interested to hear
absolutely.
your perspective about that actually, because I think about that more in terms of like an artistic perspective, like how do I retain my personality in what I make without it being diluted too much with other people's opinions or feedback. But I don't necessarily view my like my part-time job working at people's trust for endangered species. I don't view that in the same way specifically. So, but yeah, I'd be good to hear like
That's a really interesting point, and maybe we can talk about it now briefly. And it's actually kind of the that collective intelligence actually, and it's kind of where I was inspired to name this podcast. But if you're facing like complex problems and challenges, it's better to sometimes get a diverse range of views and perspectives to help you solve those challenges. But I kind of think of that in more of a professional sense, and it's inspired by a book called Rebel Ideas by Matthew Said. And he talks about diverse perspectives and getting like multidisciplinary teams in, but I've never actually thought about it in that sense of like in the artistic and creative scenes. Is that something you want to do, or is that something maybe if you are the sole kind of creator and contributor, you want to maybe not pick and choose, but limit that outside influence?
yeah,
Um,
it's
yes,
I think it's like the in some respects it's like an artist dilemma. It's like I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like I do think if you follow some sort of like artistic endeavor, you're probably a very selfish or somewhat arrogant person. Because you have this idea that like everyone in the world should listen to something that I've made because it's amazing and I think it's amazing. Like that's just how it is. Like you know, um, um, but I do think like sometimes artists need that. But maybe they're just two different avenues. You know, like
yeah,
in a professional context. Some of the biggest artists in all forms of like media, like music, painting, photography, like they had their so individual way of doing things that like sets them apart from everything else. So they obviously needed that as an essence in what they were doing to make
yeah,
their work stand out. So maybe it's a bit different with art compared to like working in a more professional environment. Because you're not maybe in professional environments, you're not trying to like I know, for example, you're not being like, I'm going to decommission this like one nuclear site because I think it'll have to do it in a very specific way. Like, no one's going to remember that work for like, oh, like maybe they will in terms of like how you went about doing it.
yeah,
But then again, I suppose it encapsulates like a more collaborative effort. Like for example, if I usually do this when I'm mixing. I will ask lots of like my producer friends for mixed feedback because in that respect, that's quite helpful to get other ears and other perspectives. And I think that's one area of like artistry where that's quite important to have some sort of like collaborative work together. And actually, when I play music in bands, that's way more collaborative than when I just produce music solely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
and
you're
I
working
was
as a unit.
exactly, and I think you're right. I think it's like probably case by case and see what works best. But then even within music, you kind of have when you're in a band and you're kind of jamming with others, it will be very different to if you're just producing solely based on what you think.
Yeah, because I do operate as like, yeah, in a band, like as a unit, and then as I suppose a solo artist by myself. So I have to just juggle
Yeah,
the two. It's
yeah,
very
that's
case dependent. I don't think we can paint the whole thing with like the same brush. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to circle back. So you said something interesting about when you were like drumming and guitaring, and then you kind of started off the DJing and producing side, and it was difficult, but you were inspired by all the different sounds out there, and it sounds like you had like a real hunger to go and seek out new opportunities. And what do you think drove that? Was it because you said you still really love drumming and that side of it, but was it maybe dissatisfaction with that, or just like really, like pure hunger to go and see what else is out there, or anything else?
It was a bit of both. I was drumming in a band for a while, for about 3.5 years. And like I learned a lot, but I found it incredibly challenging in a lot of ways too, to the point where I was like, I need to stop doing this. Like, I just felt like
Mm.
I'd become really blinkered in what I was doing, and I was like, I need to just take a step out of this realm and do something completely different. And like it sort of renewed and like reinvigorated this sort of like the initial reason why I started playing music and drumming in the first place was like just that pure curiosity and like just the pure like just like joy of like creating something. I kind of lost that because I think I was quite young at the time. I don't think I was like as clued up into like the ways of the world, I suppose. I was like drumming and whatnot in that band, and I was doing my best, but I think it was just like kind of let go of it.
Mm.
So I left that band, and I yeah, I did have like a sort of hunger just to immerse myself into new things, new sounds, a new scene almost. Because I always had this idea of like being in London and like being part of like the like underground, like London underground sort of like alternative scene or whatever. I always had this idea that would be like really collaborative and like really, people would be getting along with each other, but it was a complete opposite. It was just like everyone was kind of out for themselves. I mean, I'm not saying that it is like this. This is just the experience that I had, and I didn't like that. I didn't like
Mm.
that. It was just constant competition, and not like friendly competition where you try and like spur each other on. It just really felt like, yeah, this is a bit boring. And I was like, I don't, I don't like that. I'm going to these gigs and like all these bands are just like trying to out compete each other for like I don't know, God knows what. Like,
Mm.
um, it just became a bit of a slog after a while, and that did like get me down a bit. So after I left that band, I you know got really into DJing and producing music and stuff, and I found, funnily enough, that community in that scene in a place that I never thought that I would. Like, I found it there, and like I still have it, and I've just got like I've been introduced to so many opportunities and so many people and just so much through that. But funnily enough, like because I still play drums now, um, I've kind of found like that community in that band too. It's like it's all come around. So maybe I just like I learned how to deal with situations in a different manner, like in a more mature and a more yeah, in a better way, I think,
Yeah,
in a more
yeah.
balanced way instead of yeah, um, yeah, yeah,
That's really interesting that like you were able to find that community back in the drumming area, because it sounds like when you went to first to that DJ and like mixing arena, it was like exciting again, and you kind of found the things that got you into music right at the beginning. And it's like, and I remember when you've sent me stuff in the past, and like you kind of really work so hard to make this stuff possible, and it's just incredible some of the stuff you produce. But And then to found that again in the drumming area. So yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that. So are you still quite involved in the like both, or would you say you're more involved in like one area more than the other?
I think at the moment, just because of like the nature of like being in lockdown and COVID times and stuff, I'm definitely putting more energy into producing music, just because I can sit at my laptop and
Yeah.
just like play, and I've got my records here for like sampling and whatnot. So I've
Yeah.
been doing that more than I have drumming. But when the like restrictions got lifted earlier, like around summertime last year, um, I did get together with the band in Muscle Fest to record an EP with them, and we'd managed to like get to the studio and like record the entire thing like maybe like 2 or 3 days before the second lockdown got announced, the one that
Okay.
happened in November. Um, so we like lucked out really hard for that.
Yeah. Went to the
Just managed to get
studio.
like like just got in, and it was really, it just felt like I was really grateful that I could get into the studio even during a time like like last year. Like we still
Yeah.
managed to get in and record something and stuff. So yeah, so I'm focusing more on that right now. But man, I really do miss gigs. I miss like
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
I miss playing live. I miss playing in a room with people. But at the same time, when like last year's the first lockdown got announced in March, it did make me realize that I was doing way too much, and I was like putting myself, like I was stretching myself the seams pretty much. And
Mm.
it's been nice to sort of like take a step back and just reevaluate and reassess how I go about doing these things without like
Yeah.
constantly tiring myself out.
How did you
So yeah,
recognize that you were like spreading yourself really thin? Like, were there any kind of, I don't know, things that going on, or like was it more in retrospect you realized that?
um, neither really. I always knew that I was stretching myself thin. I just didn't acknowledge it,
Mm.
which is probably which isn't great. Um, but I always had this mentality of like, I just have to keep on working. Like I have to keep on pushing myself and keep on doing these things. Um, if I want to get to like wherever I want to be and what I want to achieve, which is, I would like to be in a position where I can sustain myself off of playing music as a full-time career, regardless if that's like drumming or DJing or producing or a mixture of the above. And at the moment, it seems to be going towards a mixture of the above, and I'm totally fine with that because I love doing all of it. But going into the lockdown, I kind of just took a step back and I was like, am I putting 100% of myself into all of these aspects, or am I sacrificing? And I came to the conclusion that I was sacrificing
Mm.
things. So I think it's just about, I have to just be a bit more mindful about how I go about doing things, because I have a lot of energy and I have a lot of like, I just want to go and do everything at the same time all of the time. And I can't do that. Obviously, no one can.
Yeah.
And I just need to make sure that that doesn't negatively impact the things that I do decide to
Yeah.
work on. And I think that's been evident in how I've been producing now. Like because I've been focusing most of my time on doing that. It's just been like, yeah, I feel like I'm discovering new sounds and new ways of doing things, and
Mm.
like better at doing it. But likewise, like as I said, we went to the studio in October 2020. I stopped producing around that time. Like just gave myself time to like just have a break. I focused solely on like doing stuff I had to do with Muscle Fest, and it was amazing. Like I just kind of, I'd never allowed myself to do that where I chunked off specific like 2 weeks or 3 weeks out. I just focused on this. Once this project's wrapped up, and I just focus on this. Before,
Yeah.
early in 2020, I was just doing everything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a really important point, like takeaway actually. It's so easy to kind of get taken away by all the other things going on and like spread yourself thin and whatever. But yeah, like kind of having that undivided attention on one thing can yield some benefits, unexpected benefits, and That sounds really good.
Yeah.
I just want to play. So you've produced a lot of really cool stuff over the last year, and I'm just gonna share my screen and play a bit of a clip of something that's come out relatively recently. So it's the daytime. It's on the daytimers, and your track is dawning. So play a 10-second clip. It's just like incredible, some of the stuff you've produced, and yeah, over the last few years, just I get these early sneak peeks from you, and it's always like really lovely to kind of hear what you're up to and the different
Thank
people you're collaborating with, and it's just pretty incredible. And you've recently been like part of a BBC project, is that right? And
Yeah.
I honestly can't even keep up, Aaron, like the amount of stuff you're producing. I don't know how you do it. Yeah, so yeah, I just want to say, yeah, it's incredible. But going back to the
Thank you.
you mentioned about mindfulness, I kind of want to take us on to the next part. So you've been part of well, you've gone for like quite long meditation silent retreats. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what that's all about?
Yeah. So back in like 20, it's been like 2015. Um, well, actually, it starts a bit like earlier than that. Like when I think a lot of people experience this, like when I found that when I left university and I went into, I suppose, like the real world, um, I found the experience of like switching in between that into, trying to get, getting a job, getting a full-time job and that sort of thing. I found the experience really jarring. Like I found it really, I found it just quite difficult to adjust to, at university you have all this freedom and free time, and then all of a sudden you go into like, yeah, these expectations of like with working and whatnot. And I'm gonna preface this by saying that like I didn't really know what sort of work I wanted to do when I left university, in the sense of like I knew that I wanted to play music, and I knew the journey was going to be very long and it's going to take time. I just didn't know what to do, kind of like in just like get there. So when I got my first like full-time job, I just found the experience really jarring of suddenly having very little free time to like work on music outside of long commutes and that sort of thing. And I just found the experience, it wore me down very quickly. I felt like I was losing a part of myself in the process. And at the same time, tying into, I suppose, like themes of personal development, I didn't want to keep on feeling that way. So I started to look into, practicing meditation and that sort of thing to sort of like help me deal with the, I suppose, your day-to-day stresses that you can experience. So I was looking around for meditation retreats and that sort of thing, and I discovered this one called it's by the Vipassana organization. They do these like 10-day silent retreats. They're free. You don't have to pay anything to go into them, which was a big part of why I chose it, because some of the other ones were like, oh, you have to pay like £300 or whatever for like extra, yeah, just X amount of days. And I don't know, just I kind of felt like that sort of like knowledge is, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
Everyone
it
should
tells you a
have
bit
like,
about their motivations, doesn't it, as well?
yeah, yeah. And it's funny actually, because like when you back then, like when you went on with their website, the website was super basic, like by like 2015 standards.
Yeah.
And I was really suspect at the time. I was like, is this legit? And naturally you just start Googling like all these. You see people have been articles on
TripAdvisor
the Guardian.
reviews and
Yeah, like yeah. TripAdvisor reviews. Yeah. yeah, Airbnb reviews and shit. And yeah, so you read people's experiences. Like there's articles on the Guardian about it, and people have written various like independent blogs on it and stuff. So it gave you an idea of what it was. But I decided to take like my first 10-day meditation course over. I went after Christmas in 2015, so I stayed for like 10 days over New Year's. I merged back into the world in 2016, and obviously I'd never experienced like anything like that before. Like I'd never been silent for 10 days, let alone like meditated like for like 10 to 11 hours a day for 10 days in a row. Um, and yeah, it was it was life changing. I'd say like not to sound like blowing out the proportion or anything, but it definitely set me off on something that I just value so much now. It's brought so much benefit and like clarity to how I just how I live basically. I wish I'd done it earlier, and like I wish that I'd been able to like practice this when I was like at school or something. Like I think if anyone had seriously practiced it while they're at school or whatever, I think that yeah, it just helps you conduct yourself in a more mindful manner.
Mm.
I mean, I've written a whole article. Like it's funny, like when you go on these courses, they say that like you'll when you come back, you usually feel encouraged to sort of like tell everyone about it. Like you tell your friends and family that, oh my god, you should do this course, because you feel so much benefit from it, and you just want everyone else to feel what the same benefit from you. Sorry, the same benefit that you've had as well. You just want to share that experience, and people do that by texting friends. And I recently did my third, so I did my second course in 2019, in May, and I did my third course last October. So again, I was just super lucky I managed to get onto one, considering it was all like COVID secure, like it was social distance. Um, so I was super lucky I managed to get one, and it's my goal now to do a course every year
Yeah.
until yeah, just keep it going. And
To
since I got sorry, yeah,
to people that might be considering something like that, and like I know I am, and I was actually signed up with you to go last year, but then COVID had it cancelled.
yeah,
But I'd be looking to do one in the following year. But to people, I mean, one of my initial concerns was 10 days is a long time, and it's quite like a daunting thing. It's like almost like you're planning to go on like do a marathon, and do you have
yeah.
to kind of warm up to do that, or would you recommend like people just kind of go and do it and not think about it and just start doing it? Or yeah, how would you what tips would you have for like newbies who might want to get involved in something like that?
Um, I don't really, I don't feel like I'm in a position to give tips for it. I
Mm.
think it's a very personal choice. Um, for me, I can only speak about my experiences for it, but taking 10 days out of your life to learn a technique of meditation that can benefit the rest of your life is a very small sacrifice. Because especially because it will benefit every aspect of your life after you come back. Um, it's not like I don't want like the viewers or listeners to think that it's a sort of like fix all. Like you go on a course and you come back and you're like, oh my god, everything's amazing. It's not. It takes practice. Like when I got back off of my first course, I didn't. They say that to maintain your practice, you should meditate an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, and try and fit that in your like daily life. And it's not until I got back off of my third course that I've started to meditate an hour every morning. Now I still can't find the time to do an hour in the evening, but I will do an hour in the morning every day. And I'm on like 110-day streak now, so
Wow.
it's great.
I
And
didn't know
and I
that.
don't want to stop. Um, but I think just do your own research with it if you're considering doing it. It's like the course isn't easy. Um, it's I don't think it will be for everyone. although I do think it is something that everyone should at least go into and try with an open mind, and
Mm.
just go in there, see what happens. But I think there's a lot of stigma around like practicing meditation and practicing these sorts of like I guess yeah, like spiritual practices. There's a lot of stuff you have to wade through, I think, to find things that work for you. So yeah, I'd just say like do your own research. I mean, I wrote an article about this purely for this reason, for people to sort of like get insight into what it's like to do the course and the things that I got out of it.
Mm.
It's yeah, I don't think you need to like warm up per se.
Okay.
It does. I mean, the course does involve doing a lot of like sitting in the same position.
I was going to
Um,
say, like, I can't sit cross-legged for a very long time, so maybe I just need to
you
practice doing
you
that.
you will be able to after like around about day 5, day 6. It differs for some people, but you find that your meditations are like you begin to settle into like sitting in the same position. Like it actually
Mm.
comes quite quickly. If you think about it, you're practicing the same thing for roughly 10 hours a day for 10 days in a row, just solely focused on doing that one thing. If you did that with anything in your life, your capacity to pick it up would be really fast. But we don't, obviously, we don't have the time to do those sorts of things in our day-to-day lives. Like, we have responsibilities, we have jobs. But let's say you wanted to learn how to juggle. If you spent 10 hours a day for 10 days in a row, just focusing on how to juggle, you would be able to juggle by the end of those 10 days.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah, you'd hope so. But you know what I mean. So we think I think the best way to think about it is that like you're just being given this opportunity to just focus on
Mm.
meditating. You don't have to. All your meals are cooked for you. Um, you don't have to. There's you live your life by a gong. Like, there's someone ringing a gong at meditation time or eating time or like resting, like bathing time. So you don't have to worry about like looking at your phone because your phone's switched off in a locker, no books, no TV, no distractions. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
there's
it sounds
something
like a
I can.
fascinating thing. Sorry, go
I
on.
was going to say that I can like link the article
Yeah, yeah, and
and then you can put it in the description.
I'll share all the links
Yeah,
on the description. But yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like such a notable thing, and I think there's like a lot of yeah, a lot of notable people. I think Yuval Noah Harari is like a I don't know what he's done a few of them, hasn't he? Like the longer ones.
He's actually an assistant teacher. So he like when you go on the like the 10-day courses, they describe like the doing the 10-day silent retreat is like the kindergarten of Vipassana, and that gives you an idea of just like how deep this like meditation process goes. Um, and I've done 3 of these, so I guess I've repeated kindergarten 3 times. Um, so
When do you
but it's
progress
like
to nursery? The
um,
next level.
but you have to do like I think 5 10-day courses, and you also have to have served at least one. So like that basically means that I said earlier that your meals are good for you and all that stuff. So um, these Vipassana courses are run entirely off of like serving and donation. So that's why they're free. They've had old students who have practiced before have given money because they felt the benefits of the practice. Again, only if they wanted to give money. You're not forced to. Um, so the whole movement is just based off of people donating. That's how they set up all these centers. There's 2 centers in the UK, and there's they're worldwide. If you go onto the website, you'll be able to find them. And when their courses run, they ask people to come and serve. So there'll be people cleaning, people cooking, and you'll have a teacher, an assistant teacher that will help you through the process, and that counts as service too. So if you've done like 5 10-day courses and then 1 serving course, then you can do like a 20-day course, and then you have to do a certain amount of those to do a 30-day course, and you have to do a certain amount of those to do like a 60-day course. And those are reserved for like assistant teachers in training, I think. Um, so it's a long process, but yeah, Yuval Noah Harari has he's yeah, been a long time Vipassana practitioner. And I think he dedicated his first book to the man who like helped to like propagate Vipassana worldwide. His name's SM.
Oh, wow.
Um, but yeah, he's an assistant teacher, so he
Yeah,
helps
it's
to.
really it's super fascinating, and like there's you and a few others who I know who've done this, and every time I speak to one of you, I feel like it's just such a lovely conversation, and you guys just seem very grounded, and not always, but like most of the time, I think
Yeah,
I think it really like does seem to have this really good effect on people. Um,
yeah. I mean, I feel like incredibly. It doesn't. One of the reasons I wanted to practice Vipassana was because I didn't like how I could be sometimes in terms of like being really reactive or like hurting other people's feelings, and then you feel bad yourself, and you notice these sort of like negative behavior patterns in yourself. I wanted
mm,
to change that, so it's definitely helped with that, and it just helps you see the world in a very different light, and it helps you cope with change in a more positive manner.
mm,
And I think that's really important now, especially with the massive changes that the entire world has been going through with COVID and being in lockdown, um,
yeah,
especially like being in and out of lockdowns and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
it's something I recommend everyone just have a look into and just approach it with an open mind.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think we'll finish in a couple of minutes, but are there any kind of, I don't know, any nuggets of information you'd like to share with anybody watching on how anything you do every day? You mentioned meditation or anything you keep doing for your like continued personal and professional development.
Yeah. So yeah, I meditate for an hour every day, and I hope that I can begin to increase that to doing an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. But I'm still practicing. I hopefully I'll be able to get there. Um, I've been lacking in this department, but I do try and just keep physically active. Usually before COVID, playing drums and zooming around, just traveling around London. That I'd be keeping myself pretty active. Um, but I play tennis as well. I think especially during COVID times, I've really felt the benefit of like getting out and like being out and about, running. Even like I don't think it has to be like rigorous. It's just doing something every day that like gets your heart rate up and going is I think is really beneficial. Um, but I mean I hadn't been out of the house for like 2.5 weeks like after like around Christmas time and stuff, and I was just feeling really sluggish. And I was like, I just need to like get out and just we're so fortunate we have like a really nice big like nature reserve behind where we live. We
Mm,
can take like the dog out for walks around there. It's really nice to sort of like be in nature and whatnot.
yeah.
Um, what else do? Yeah, I don't know. I just take every moment as like a new fresh perspective and just try and approach it that way. Try not to get too caught up in things that don't matter. I know that sounds really vague, but it's
Mhm.
it's just yeah. I think like being in lockdown and COVID perspectives and stuff made you realize that there are so many things you probably wasted a lot of energy and time caring about that probably just don't mean that like you just don't need to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely. Yeah, and it sounds like a lot based around like mindfulness, connecting with nature, and yeah, not getting too kind of bogged down in like macro things, and yeah, taking
yeah,
each moment as it comes.
and also actually like thanks to you, and I know that I've like left the book club, but like like you did like re invigorate my love of reading. Um,
Mm,
so I've been spending way less time on social media and way more time reading. Um, I don't know, like 2020, I spent so much time like, and actually deleted all my social media apps off my phone
mm,
over the holiday period. And since we've been into the new year, I've just been using it so minimally. Great, like just like super mindful of like when I'm beginning to like just get sucked into Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would stop myself and be like, no, like replace those activities with something more constructive, like reading or read an article, or do something like that. So that's actually been really important as well. I know that's easier said than done, especially
Yeah.
people being stuck at home and there's not a lot to do. But I think if you can replace that social media time with just like inputting like good knowledge into your brain, like if everything you perceive and everything you take in so much information on a daily basis, like just make sure it's like good stuff and stuff that like
Mm,
is appealing to you. What you see on social media is very rarely truth, like
yeah.
absolute whatever. I'd much rather spend that time just like reading good stuff.
Definitely. It is designed to like push all our buttons and that serotonin release and everything. But so that
The social dilemma was the
oh
stuff
messed
I
me
was
up.
like
That shit messed me
saying.
up.
It was
But
crazy.
in a good way, in a good way.
Yeah,
That's a really interesting point though. I just wanted to pick up on before we finish. So you kind of are coming off social media, but you're obviously like a very talented musician trying to get the word out about your music. Is there
yeah.
like how do you manage that? I mean, are you using social media still to like push your messages and your music or
Dude, that's a daily battle that I haven't figured out yet. It's yeah, like as Aaron said, it's like if you're an artist or a musician or something, Instagram is usually your homepage. It's your calling card for like people to get in touch with you, and you're almost like creating this brand around yourself that you have to push out. And I'm still trying to figure out how I use it properly, because I was using my social media more than I usually did last year, but I found that I was then beginning to waste a lot of time on it. So I'm still trying to figure out how do I just like put out what I need to put out on social media, whilst trying to come across as honest and as myself as I possibly can, without getting caught in the traps of like changing how you speak, or like the sort of things the content you put out on social media that isn't you. Without having to like fall into the traps of like making content to like get into algorithms and stuff. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah, that whole
It
SEO optimization and
man,
it's a mess.
like for example, I remember when I wrote the meditation article, I sent it to you for to proofread it, and you sent me some articles back about like how I could change the title of my article so that SEOs could like pick up like keywords and it would come up in Google searches more. And it was like this website where you type in potential title names, and then it ranks, like it gives you a score of like how likely an algorithm would pick it up based on like any emotive language you used or descriptors, that sort of thing. And I sat there and I was just like, I don't know if I'm cool with the idea of like changing what I thought was like a very honest and kept the essence of what the article was about.
Mm.
I wasn't sure if I was happy with the idea of like changing the title just so that I could get more like views on it. Like I don't know, it
Yeah.
always creates this internal dilemma. And I was like, but this is what I was saying like right at the beginning of this conversation about like that's the artist in me being like really arrogant, just be like, no, I made this. Like I want it to be like this. Like I
Yeah.
don't care if but then I know that's a very unrealistic
Well, it's really interesting because yeah, I didn't see that
yeah.
until just now when you mentioned it. But like the whole kind of point of the Vipassana meditation seems very like conflicted with this. Let me optimize it for like users to kind of absorb it, and like I don't know, and it just seems a bit conflicted, maybe.
um I think that's maybe a bit of a simplification. I don't know. All I'm saying is that like I'm still trying to figure out my own relationship with
Mm,
how I use social media and how I have a presence on the
yeah,
internet and stuff. Because my like at the moment, like life without using social media is like really good. And yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out.
yeah.
It will
I'm
come. I
sure you
just
will definitely.
yeah.
And I think there's something that's really nice you said about like bringing your authentic self to it. How do you do that and
Yeah.
and show that on your profiles?
Yeah. Because it's really easy to sort of like just not be your authentic self, like fall into the traps of like how people like the way people type on Twitter is like if they're trying to get everyone's attention, so really specific. Like it's sometimes when I open Twitter, I just feel like everyone's like screaming their opinions at me, and I'm just kind of like exit. just it's too much. I can't handle it. Like,
Yeah, that's really
you know,
interesting.
and you know, part of me doesn't want to contribute to that culture. That I think that's usually where my conviction lies with it. It's yeah, I don't know if I want to contribute to that culture of how people are on social media, but I don't know. I'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah, no, definitely. So
Yeah.
on that note, before we finish, can you tell people where to find you on social media?
Yeah, sure.
And like to find your music and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So
Not hypocritical at all here, but yeah.
no, it's not. I mean, it's not hypocritical. Just
No.
as I said, I just don't know. I don't know like how to figure out how to use it. Yeah. So all my handles on my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook are AJDZAR. So you can find me there. But if you I'm just thinking, I I have an email, like my music email address is the same, ajdzar@gmail.com. Um, and I do have like a email newsletter that I started sending out. So if you want to get in touch, I think like email me. That's cool. Like let's be different
Yeah, definitely.
instead of like uh yeah. But you can still follow me on socials. That's fine. As you probably just found, I'm still trying to figure out how to use it. So just
I also
I'll
really
pop
like
up.
yeah, and I'll make sure I put all the details in the comment in the description. Sorry, but there's also the I forgot. I don't know if you still update it, but your baked goods Spotify playlist with all of the different tracks you've kind of compiled over the years that you've kind of had a hand in creating. So
Yes.
might share a
Yes.
link to that. Is that still going? Are you still updating that as
Yeah,
it
it's
goes?
still on. Yeah, it's I haven't updated it recently just because I haven't had much. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the playlist on my phone to show you guys. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah, no,
occasionally
it's
will go
totally
and
it's
listen to it, and it is really nice.
yeah, it's all up to date. So it's like I don't know if you can see that, but that's me.
Yeah,
And there's all the songs that I've like either drummed on or like produced or you know had a hand in. Yeah, usually just like drummed on or produced. So it will yeah give it a listen. I hope you guys like it.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I always update it like regularly whenever something comes out. But for the time being, it's, yeah, because it's still January, you know, things are just so. But,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, Aaron, for joining us, and
Um,
yeah,
thank you for
look
having
forward
me.
to the next one. No worries.